Hey there! Is today your first time here? Or maybe your first time in a while? If so, maybe you're wondering exactly who we are and what this church is all about. Well, we'd like you to know that we're a group of ordinary people who are on an amazing journey together, following Christ. Our guide is the Bible because it's the divinely inspired Word of God, and it will never take us in the wrong direction. Along the way, we hope you'll see that we are welcoming and spiritually passionate, and that getting to know you is a big deal to us. We know that the road is rough sometimes, but we'll work really hard to bring you practical and relevant messages to equip and encourage you through life's ups and downs. We want you to know that we care about this community, and we believe that it's our job to make it a better place. So no matter who you are or where you've been, we're glad you're here with us today, and we hope that you'll join us on our journey, following Christ and living out His plan for us. So welcome to church.
Hey church, we're going to sing All My Fountains, and hopefully you'll join in wherever you are with a little clapping of your hands. And remember, later in the song you have that special part that goes like this. You got it? Let's sing All My Fountains.
This dry and desert land, I tell myself keep walking on. Here's something up ahead, water falling like a song. An everlasting stream, your river carries me home. Let it flow, let it flow. 1, 2, 3, 4. All my fountains, a flood for my soul, a well that never will run dry. I've rambled on my own, never believing I would find an everlasting stream. Your river carries me home. Let it flow, let it flow. Open the heavens, come living water. All my fountains are in you. Strong like the river,
alltid vart det troj.
Que se manito virtud y fe.
Oh Canada, stringiami il tuo bel cor.
Oh, Canada, we stand on guard for thee.
His righteousness alone. Faultless stand before the throne.
It's a privilege to share with you again this morning. Earlier in our online worship, we took time to reflect upon those who were willing to make that sacrifice of their lives for our freedom. I pray that we don't take that for granted, and come Thursday, that we will take the opportunity just to be quiet, to reflect, to thank God for those who were willing to make that sacrifice so that we could enjoy this beautiful country of Canada. We think of those who served in First World War, the Second World War, the Korean War, and all conflicts and battles since then, that even up to this day, where our armed forces are serving around the world. Some gave up their lives for us. Some had their lives changed forever. Even the lives of families have been impacted. So let's not take that for granted. And on Thursday, take some moments just to remember and to thank God for those who are willing to serve. I want to share with you this morning from John chapter 7, verses 37 to 39, and then some verses from Psalm 61. So from John's Gospel, chapter 7, let me just share these words with you. On the last and greatest day of the feast, and this is the Feast of the Tabernacle, Jesus stood and in a loud voice, "If anyone is thirsty, let him come to me and drink. Whoever believes in me, as the scriptures have said, streams of living water will flow from within him." By this he meant the Spirit, whom those who believed in him were later to receive. Up to this time, the Spirit had not yet been given, since Jesus had not yet been glorified. And then we go to Psalm 63. O God, you are my God. Earnestly I seek you. My soul thirsts for you. My body longs for you in a dry and weary land where there is no water. The invitation to come and drink is the climax of a series of references in John's Gospel. For instance, if you were to look in chapter 2, you have the water turning into wine. Chapter 3, the water of the new birth. Chapter 4, the living water. Chapter 5, the cleansing water. Chapter 6, the calming water. And here we are in chapter 7, and Jesus speaks to the heart of all of those who are at the Feast of the Tabernacle on that day. If anyone is thirsty, let him come to me and drink. The same invitation is extended to you and I today. If anyone is thirsty, let him come and drink. You see, God gave the biblical festivals, as we read them in the Old Testament and again in the New Testament, to teach the Jewish people and to teach us about his character and help us to understand his full plan of salvation. So the Feast of the Tabernacles, where Jesus was present that day, is an 8-day festival that begins at sundown on the first day of the feast. In order to understand the teaching of Jesus here, we need to go back to the Old Testament, to Leviticus chapter 23. There, Moses instructed the people that the first and the 8th day of the festival were to be special days of rest, set apart from the others. But the 7th day became known as Hoshana, and I think I'm pronouncing that correctly, Rabbah. The great day is what it meant, the great day. So special observances and traditions were to mark this special day in Israel, this great day. And the most spectacular of these traditions was the water drawing ceremony. Imagine a whole parade of worshipers led by the priests to the pool at Siloam, the same place where Jesus told the blind man to cleanse his eyes after he put clay over them so he could see clearly. The priests, as they led the procession, had two golden pitchers. One is for the wine, and the other is for the water they would draw from the pool of Siloam. As the flutes continued to play, a choir of Israelites started to chant Psalm 118. Let me just read a couple of these verses. And this is what they chanted. Give thanks to the Lord, for he is good. His love endures forever. Let Israel say, his love endures forever. Let the house of Aaron say, his love endures forever. Let those who fear the Lord say, his love endures forever. And this chant would go on as these worshipers followed behind, listening as the flutes were playing and the chant was going on. And the whole procession heads back to the temple through the water gate. A trumpet sounds as the priest enters the temple area. He approaches the altar with two silver basins, where two silver basins are waiting. He pours wine from one of the pitchers into the basin as a drink offering to the Lord, and from that golden pitcher into the other basin, he pours water from the pool of Siloam and places it on the altar. The whole ceremony was such a joyful occasion that one of the ancient rabbis wrote, anyone who has not seen this water ceremony has never seen rejoicing in his life. And you could hear the chant, the celebration. The ceremony was to thank God for his provision and to ask him to provide rain for the crops in the coming year. You see, water in the Middle Ages during this time was often scarce. And so the people were very much aware of their dependence upon God to send these rains that were so vital for the preservation of life. So no wonder the prophets came to see rain as a symbol of salvation and a work of the Holy Spirit. In Ezekiel, you'll find this written in chapter 36, verse 25, I will sprinkle clean water on you, and you will be clean. No wonder then that Jesus stood in the temple on this great day and cried out, if anyone is thirsty, let him come to me and drink. Whoever believes in me, as the scriptures have said, streams of living water will flow from within him. And John remarks later in verse 39, by this he meant the Spirit, whom those who believed in him were later to receive, because up to this time the Spirit had not yet been given, because Jesus had not yet been glorified. So as the rain falls to nourish the crops, the Holy Spirit falls upon those who have identified with Jesus in his death and resurrection. It is that Spirit that refreshes us and causes us to grow in grace and in faith. It is that Spirit that allows us to experience Emmanuel, God with us. So at this point in the festival, Jesus dramatically cries out, because you must understand all of the celebration and all of the noise and the chanting. And in the midst of all of this, as everybody is looking towards the priest, then Jesus shouts out, if anyone is thirsty, let him come and drink. Can you imagine? He had to shout just to be heard. Can you imagine the commotion at that moment? You can see the crowd shifting their focus from over here to here as Jesus speaks. Come, all you who are thirsty. Come to the waters. Come to me, Jesus is saying. He's fulfilling the role of God who will guide them and lead them beside the springs of living water, as recorded in Isaiah chapter 49 and verse 10. His offer shows he is far more than just a prophet. Here, my friends, we have God himself offering life. Can you imagine? We have God himself offering life. In Jewish writing, water is a very rich symbol. God himself can be called the spring of living water. It's recorded in Jeremiah chapter 2, verse 13, or in Jeremiah 17 and 13. But in John 7:39, Jesus is offering the living water that is able to satisfy people's thirst for God. It's not a physical quenching thirst. It's the people's thirst for God. The cries of the psalmist, I should say, are heard and answered. David prayed, "O God, you are my God. Earnestly I seek you. My soul thirsts for you. My body longs for you in a dry and weary land where there is no water." Psalm 42, as a deer pants for the streams of water, so my soul pants for you, O God. My soul thirsts for God, for the living God. Where can I go and meet with God? The psalmist cries out. These are the cries of the psalmist. O God, my soul thirsts for God, the living God. Is that our cry? Is that our cry? Where can I go and meet with God? As we think about this a little more, may I suggest that there are three kinds of thirst. The first one is the thirst of the empty soul. Now, I realize this morning that as we share online, there are people who are watching who are part of Richmond Hill Community Church, but there are other people who are watching that might not be associated with any church. And just by God's design this morning, you tuned in here to listen to what God would say to you. And so I may be speaking to you when I say the thirst of the empty soul. Stay with me for a moment. We sense there is something else. There's something missing in our lives, but we can't identify what it is. There's this total emptiness. Devoid of God, we are constantly in pursuit of that which might take away the pain and hopelessness of emptiness. The pain and hopelessness of emptiness. We scramble for things in life that don't seem to last. We're grasping for something, but we're not sure what it is. It becomes a game out of control with no way of winning. It just goes around and around and around. Searching always, but never finding. And not even sure what we're searching for. St. Augustine said, and in speaking of God, "Thou hast made us for thyself, and our hearts are restless until they find their rest in thee." Lord, you have made us for yourselves, and our hearts are restless and empty until they find their rest, their place in you. Always on a search, and we become weary, exhausted, worn out with it all, and nothing seems to show up but just an empty, empty life. All alone. No purpose, no direction, no sense to it all. The empty soul goes from one pursuit to the other, unable to fill that void that only can be filled by the presence of God. Wow, wonderful news this morning. That emptiness can be filled by the presence of God. And if somebody's listening this morning, and that's your experience, you'll find some information at the end of the online where you can call us or email us, contact us if you want someone to talk to you and learn more about what we mean by our lives being filled by the presence of God. We would be delighted to talk with you further. The second kind of thirst is the thirst of the dry soul. And the difference between the empty soul and the dry soul is that one has never experienced the rivers of living water, never experienced the presence of Christ in their lives, while the other has and knows what he or she is missing. They know what they are missing because they once experienced this. One writer, pastor, while reading John chapter 4, verse 14, where it says, "Whoever drinks of the water I shall give him will never thirst," cried out to God, "What do you mean? I am so thirsty. My church is thirsty. The pastors whom I pray with are thirsty. Oh, Jesus, what do you mean?" And as he meditated on the text further, it came to him in this way. When you drink my water, Jesus is saying, your thirst is not destroyed forever. If it did that, if it satisfied and destroyed that taste forever, thirst forever, would you feel any need for my water afterwards? If the thirst had been satisfied, destroyed forever. That is not my goal, Pastor was hearing from God. I do not want self-sufficient followers. When you drink my water, it makes a spring in you. A spring satisfies thirst, not by removing the need you have for water, but by being there to give you water whenever you get thirsty. So it never goes dry. You will receive it again and again and again, these refreshing waters. Of course, there may be reasons for our spiritual dryness, as the Puritans would refer to God deserting them. While there are times God floods our souls with a sense of his presence, and at other times we feel dehydrated by a sense of his absence. Let me say, these feelings of God deserting us is merely our perceptions, for the reality is just as Jesus promised, I would never leave you nor forsake you. Let me just say that again. The idea that God would desert us is merely our perception. For the reality is, Jesus promised, and his promise is truth. And when Jesus promises, he really says, I will do this for you. I will never leave you or turn my back upon you, forsake you. We read that in Hebrews chapter 13, verse 5. When feeling deserted by God, we do wonder if God has turned his back upon us, forsaken even. Where's God when we sometimes cry out in desperation during this dry season? Well, the psalmist cried out in 143, verse 6, I spread out my hands to you. My soul thirsts for you like a parched land. Answer me quickly, O Lord. My spirit fails. Do not hide your face from me. I think that maybe a lot of us have found ourselves in this dry land sometimes, this dry soul experience, for reasons not always understood, but it does seem at times that God withdraws a conscious sense of his nearness. I've not quite understood that, but maybe again it's my perception. Of course, the clouds refuse the sun to shine through, but the sun is still there. So with God, when circumstances that can cause us to think that God has withdrawn his presence as we cannot see him, it's good to remember that he's still there. Still there. Watch as the sun's rays break through. Watch as the Son of God breaks through. We also know that spiritual dryness can be caused by prolonged mental and physical fatigue. When we're weary in well-doing, the energy and desire needed has evaporated, it seems. So friends, it's important in our own spiritual journeys that we take time to rest in his presence. And then in conclusion, the thirst of the empty soul and the thirst of the dry soul, there's the thirst of the satisfied soul. And my prayer is this is where we are, where you are. You see, the satisfied soul thirsts for God precisely because he is satisfied with God. How strange, isn't it? The satisfied soul thirsts for God because he is so satisfied with God. The psalmist said in Psalm 34, taste and see that the Lord is good. Taste and see that the Lord is good. Another way of saying that, tasted and seen that the Lord is good, so now I want more and more and more. Taste and see that the Lord is good. And now I want more and more and more. The taste is so uniquely satisfying that there is a craving for more of this living water. A.W. Tozer called this the piercing sweetness of Christ. The piercing sweetness of Christ. Only to leave you with a divine discontent for more. Maybe this prayer of Tozer speaks into your desire and my desire this morning. Oh God, I have tasted thy goodness, and it has both satisfied me and made me thirsty for more. I am painfully conscious of my need for further grace. I am ashamed of my lack of desire. O God, the triune God, I want to want thee. I long to be filled with longing. I thirst to be made thirsty still. I want to want thee. I long to be filled with longing. I thirst to be made thirsty still. What was it the prophet Isaiah declared in Isaiah chapter 30, verse 18, how blessed are all those who long for him. On the last and greatest day of the feast, Jesus stood and said in a loud voice, if anyone is thirsty, let him come and drink. Whoever believes in me, as the scriptures has said, streams of living water will flow from within him. Respond to his invitation and come. Come to him and drink. God bless you as we continue to worship together.
I love how in this song it says, I choose to praise. Yes, I will lift you high in the lowest valley. I will bless your name. I will sing for joy. But I choose to praise.
I count on one thing. The same God that never fails will not fail me now. You won't fail me now in the waiting. The same God who's never late is working all things out. You're working all things out. Yes, I will lift you high in the lowest valley. Yes, I will bless your name. Yes, I will sing for joy when my heart is heavy all my days. Oh, yes, I will. I count on one thing, the same God that never fails will not fail me now. You won't fail me now in the waiting. The same God who's never late is working all things out. You're working all things out. Yes, I will lift you high in the lowest valley. Yes, I will bless your name. Oh, yes, I will sing for joy